two-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security that is known as multi-factor authentication. It is also known as two-step verification. So right now, I am logging in as a user where I have not set any two-factor authentication yet. And now we log in as a system admin to first do the initial setup of two-factor authentication. In order to set up the two-factor authentication, we need to first make sure that the email for the activation for a new user, or whenever a user requests a new password, the email that goes out to them needs to have an activation link instead of just a normal password. So we'll first go to the settings and we'll see what email goes out to them. So we go to global settings, and then under the security tab, we have a hyperlink called password and activation policies. And then we go into the activation email templates, and we have two templates here. One is a new user template and the other is a request password template. Depending on the system, you will have a sentence somewhere on this template that will say your password is, and a variable will be there. So we need to first get rid of that particular variable. And then wherever there is a variable that says, please log into https at URL at, just immediately after that, between at signs, we'll add a syntax saying activation link. So the syntax will look like at activation link at. Similarly, we'll do it for the request password. Wherever there is a URL, we'll just add at activation link at, and we'll save the changes. Then, depending on whether we want to give it to the entire role or to all the users in our system, or just one particular role to use the two-factor authentication, we'll set that up. So now in order to set, we'll navigate to roles and security. We go to user roles, and then this area lists all the roles in the system. So for example, if I want to set up two-factor authentication for just one role, so I go into the two-factor authentication role. Under the general tab, I have a drop-down that says two-factor authentication. Now, time-based one-time password, from the name itself, it is pretty evident that it is time-based. So the code that you will get, the second factor authentication that you have, is time-based, and it keeps on changing with time. The RSA disconnected token uses the concept of a private and a public key and is usually encrypted and decrypted. Today, we will be talking about time-based one-time password, which is TOTP. So from the drop-down, I selected this and I clicked on Save. Now what this does is, now whenever any user under this particular role requests a new password or gets registered into the system, the email that they will get will have an activation link, and clicking on that link, it will display or will ask them to generate a code for them for the first time. And once the code is generated, then anytime they log in, they will ask them to use that code as a second factor. Now, in order for us to generate that code and use that, we need to have a smartphone. It could be an Android phone or an Apple phone. Any smartphone will work. And using the Apple Store or the Play Store, we need to download an Authenticator app. The most famous in the market is Google Authenticator. So we can download that, and using that, it will always be on our phone, and in every 60 seconds, the code changes. So since I have enabled this, I have saved the changes. I will go to a user that belongs to this role. So I go into the current user tab and I have a user set up. So I click on that so that I go to the profile. And after editing the profile, I have a send password button. So I clicked on send password. Now, if I go to my email address, I see that I've received an email that shows, "Dear Arjun, welcome to the system. Please click on the activation link to set your password." The moment I click on this, it says, "Please type in a new password." So I say, okay. And after typing in my new password, since I'm doing it for the first time, it gives me an option to generate my two-factor authentication passcode. I clicked on generate and it gives me a barcode. Now, once I have this barcode, all I have to do is I have to use my phone and scan this barcode using the app that we downloaded, which is the Google Authenticator app. And I'm just scanning my barcode. And I scan my barcode, and now on my phone I have a 6-digit number that changes every 60 seconds. So I click on I'm not a robot, and I click on submit, and it says, okay, oh, new password does not match with confirm password. So I'll say, okay, let me just double check my new password. And now I say submit. The moment I clicked on submit, it asked me to enter a secure token PIN, which is right now available on my phone. And I click on submit. I'm logged in. So now let's log out and try to log back in again. So I'm entering my credentials again. And I click on login. So now it will always ask me, even after entering my username and password, it will always ask me to go back to the system and use the token which is generated. So now this time the token that is generated is a different one. And I click on submit, I'm logged in. Thank you.